into the local communities and happy to take questions and go into depth on anything else. And so as I mentioned, this bill passed in November. I sort of took over this role for the governor in December. And I would say, as I've worked on this, and I was tracking this bill before, I'm sort of continually learning new things about this bill. There's a lot of programs in there. There's a lot of opportunities. So part of my job is to make sure that the Commonwealth, takes advantage of this funding, but also that we bring as much home for this funding to Pennsylvania, because there's sort of guaranteed money that will get formula dollars, but then there's a lot of competitive opportunities. And this bill, more so than other bills in the past, has a lot more competitive dollars in it. So I think that's really crucial to you, to the counties, and to the local governments, and to us as well, because we can sort of just be on autopilot and we'll get a certain guaranteed amount of money, but we'd be leaving a lot of dollars on the table. So as I mentioned, roads and bridges, there's a large investment in roads and bridges, bigger investment than we've seen in a while. How PennDOT is handling that is that we have a backlog of projects, as many folks might know. We're going to be able to move up some of those projects in our timeline and add new projects. So if there's projects that folks here are interested in, I would say now is the time to have a conversation with the local PennDOT offices, with the MPOs, and sort of get those projects in the pipeline, because we've already seen some projects this year accelerate. As we go on in the next few years, there'll be a lot of opportunity.
Let me pause and say that we did have Rich Roman from PennDOT District 4 in here as well, probably about 3 months ago, and basically remember, you've got to be on the tip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get funded. So for those of municipalities, whatever, if you've got some projects and you haven't really felt that there wasn't going to be enough, you probably didn't think there was enough money, it wasn't going to be competitive against some of the bigger projects. Now more than ever is the opportunity to talk to PennDOT, start the process, because it does take a while to go through the discussions with the MPO and the transportation improvement plan.
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's a very good point. And as I mentioned as well, there's a lot of competitive opportunities. So some of these have been existing programs. There's some new programs, focused on the roads and bridge space. So for example, we have a competitive application in the PennDOT, the Commonwealth does, for a bridge in Pittston, for 2 bridges, I'm sorry, in West Pittston. Right now, those are projects that we have on our tip. So, if we're successful there, we get that money, then, that's less money we need to spend as a state. We could add other projects. Yes. Oh, transportation improvement plan. So it's like, I'm sorry, and feel free to stop me. I probably use too many acronyms. So that's like the state's 10-year plan that we're in the process of updating it now, because with more money coming in, we're like able to, as I said, move things up and shuffle things around. So I would say that too. There's in the competitive space for roads and bridges, there's a lot of overlapping programs, so I think that's helpful. There's the RAISE, which is Build or Tiger, which folks might have heard in the past. That's and then there's a new multimodal project with sort of different categories for large projects and for rural projects. And then there's a competitive bridge project, new program as well. So a lot of opportunities there. We're trying to be pretty aggressive as a state to go after everything that's there. And as I said, the more federal dollars we get, the less we have to spend of our state dollars, and we could shift other projects up. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. We've already seen a couple of projects this year been able to be accelerated, and that will continue through the rest of this year and into the next few.
So Jack, the starting point for that is local PennDOT.
Is local PennDOT. Yeah, I think a conversation with the district office of PennDOT there, if there's anything. And I'm happy to, I can hand out cards and connect folks, and you're welcome to reach out to me as well. But probably the best point of entry is the local PennDOT offices. There's a record investment in water infrastructure. That money comes to the state through PennVest. Traditionally PennVest has done low interest loans and hasn't been able to do grants. with this new money and a change we just passed in our state budget, we're going to be able to offer some grants starting later this year. So I think that's a really big opportunity. You know, we often hear from municipalities and counties, you know, a low interest loan is great, but we can't afford to repay it. So, you know, we will be able to now offer grants and combinations of grants and low interest loans. You know, I would, and I'm happy to do connections here too, but Penvest is a good starting point there at the state. They can start conversations. They're going to begin approving projects in the fall. But, you know, this is going to be rolling. They approve, you know, they have a couple different applications every year. You know, they do quarterly approvals. So, you know, there's a lot of opportunities there. They're also going to be able to provide technical assistance for communities. So, you know, we often hear from folks that, you know, we're not even ready to apply for a project. We know we have a problem, but we're not ready to apply. You know, we're going to be able to fund engineering. So an engineer can come in, look, talk to a community, see what the issues are, you know, and maybe recommend here's what you need to do, you know, and we know that's a barrier as well. So there's a lot of resources going to there. There's also more, you know, this is, you know, adjacent to the federal bill, but there was a big state investment this year as well in our budget and water infrastructure. So I would just say, you know, if you have projects or you're thinking about projects, you know, now's the time to have a conversation with Penvest, and you know, we're happy to facilitate those conversations. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. You know, we know there's no shortage of those issues across Pennsylvania.
So Jack, does that operate similar to PennDOT in the sense that does there have to be I know there's not a regional plan per se, but so the entry point is directly to Penvest? Directly
to Penvest, and they do not have a backlog. Okay. So, you know, if you guys came to me and said, you know, I think we have a project, you know, it's not like like I mentioned with PennDOT, we've got a pretty big backlog. So it's still gonna, you know, Penvest, like they, you know, they're certainly getting a lot of interest now with this additional money coming in. But they, you know, they're happy to have those conversations. They want to work with you, even if it's, you know, even if you're not ready to apply in the fall or the winter, or even a year from now, they can start talking to you. They can point you in the right direction, and you know, sort of guide you and point resources and talk about potential options and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's like I honestly think, you know, for the bill, it's a, you know, there's a huge backlog there. You know, I know. Not with Penvest, but like, you know, I know there's a lot of problems throughout the state. So, you know, I'd highly encourage folks to have those conversations. I'm happy to, you know, as I said, connect folks, you know, sit in those meetings and be helpful where I can.
If I can just sort of to take it off on, it's not a tangent as much as it's more in the realm of the Chamber of Commerce and our development organization, SLIPCO. When we talk about water and sewer, so right, mostly we're talking, I mean, for the most part, people are thinking about, you know, rain, you know, and the like. One of the things that's a big challenge to us right now, not a big challenge, but in certain circumstances up and down the valley, with the kind of new development that's happening in some spaces that had not necessarily been planned for that purpose, is the water and sewer capacity. Aaron, did you want to touch base on that just for a second, like the kind of broad issues that we're thinking about or concerned about?
Sewers capacity mostly just coming from our business parks, and we're talking about capacity manufacturing and the ability to take that wastewater down.
So whether it's Jessup or Arnold, where we have the existing parks, or moving further up the line, we've got Carbondale Township, Mayfield, German, where there's a lot of interesting opportunities, we think, for some of that land for development. We would like to be a part of this for this is out to the municipalities and to your representatives, your engineers, your borough managers alike. We're more than happy to be, we'd like to be at the table with you. It doesn't matter whether we own the land or not. At the end of the day, we're trying to market all of Lackawanna County. And as Aaron points out, manufacturing today, especially advanced manufacturing, oftentimes demands high levels of water, high level of sewer capacity. And, you know, oftentimes, unless you've planned ahead for that, we don't have that capacity built in. So anybody who's on this call who wants to talk about us being involved in that conversation for helping you plan for this, we'd be happy to be part of that.
Bob, can you just recap what Aaron said? They couldn't hear him because he's kind of at the other.
Oh,
end.
I'm sorry. Well, yeah, Aaron Whitney from our staff, we were just talking about the need for higher level of sewer capacity for the, basically what we found ourselves, spaces we found ourselves in the last couple of years is very large manufacturers, advanced manufacturers needing high water capacity and higher sewer capacity. And in some cases, it's one of these things that if you don't have it, if it's the first thing they ask you for, and they do often ask us for that information, we provide them what the capacity is. They just drive on by. They don't even ask another question if you don't have it. So in the kind of thing that you can say, well, you need this. Okay, let's work on getting that for you. Now they're ready to move now. They're not going to wait 3 years for you to plan it out and try to get the money and build it. So we have to be thinking in those terms right now. So to the degree that the municipalities have that in mind, again, we're a ready partner for anybody involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I didn't mention too, but there's a lot of programs, a lot of this funding can be used for replacing lead pipes, older infrastructure. That's a big push from the federal side, safe drinking water for that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here. There's another pot of funding, that's separate from our guaranteed money, but for just removing contaminants, PFAS, like older chemical, places that might have had chemicals in the water, former military base type stuff. So, I'm not sure off the top of my, I know that's more of an issue in the southeastern part of the state, but if that's something that there's communities around here that are dealing with, we can certainly talk about that as well.
It's also the cool communities.
Yes,
Which-
yeah,
Of that.
yeah,
With the water.
absolutely, yeah. No, I think there's, it's a really good thing. There's a lot of ways, I think we want to be, on the state side, we want to be pretty flexible with helping folks and, replacing old infrastructure, building new infrastructure. So I would just say, like, even if there's something you guys are just thinking about, let's have that conversation and see if we can be helpful.
So,
Sorry.
Online,
Mhm.
for instance, DCED has a multiple transportation. Would you recommend applying for both?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of duplication going on, at the federal level and at the state level. I would say go for both. I think if there's stuff there, it might make sense to, and I'm happy to set these conversations up, and it might make sense to have a conversation, and they might say, like, what you're doing to better fit for DCD or better fit for PennDOT. Yeah. Yeah.
I will say this. First of all, it's more competitive on the PennDOT side. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a different match, right?
Yeah.
DCED didn't have. So the entity, no, it hasn't.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
happened? So, that's good. You have to request a waiver as a municipality. It's
But we're happy to talk, and we're happy to connect folks with our team and have them talk through. I think sometimes sometimes it might make sense on paper to go for one thing, and talking to folks, they say, well, that deadline just passed, it might make some more sense to go for this, or go for this year and apply for something else next year. So we're happy to help in any way we can, and connecting folks and having those conversations.
Pat, you may want to talk to Paul Macnosky from DCED, regional representative. Paul Macnosky. When we're done, we'll get you the contact.
Another two other programs where we're getting a lot of money. This is probably not an issue for the city of Scranton, but for as we go out to the county and in other areas in northeastern Pennsylvania. But we're getting a lot of funding for orphan well plugging. Sort of a record amount. I think that's a big issue in Pennsylvania. DEP has sort of done about $20 million worth of work in the last 10 years. We're going to start getting $25 million a year to do this. So if there's project sites that you're looking at and there's an orphan, and that's sort of an obstacle, there's definitely ways where we can work with you to plug those wells. We'll start getting that money later this year. Similarly, we're also getting a lot of money for abandoned mine lands. We're, I think, we're for urban wells, we're number 2 in the country behind Texas. For abandoned mine lands, I believe we're number 1. Not where we want to be, but we're getting a lot of money for that. I think similarly, there just hasn't been a lot of federal money for fixing these sites. Sometimes that could be an obstacle for a development site or for a parcel that might otherwise be attractive for a company to come in, but there's sort of, this mine site that might cost, $100,000 to fix, and nobody's really wants to be on the hook for that. So
Jack, are these new programs or additional funding to existing programs?
these are additional funding to existing programs, but significantly more. I would say, like, we were getting, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars from the federal government for a lot of these programs, and now we're getting millions. So I think they'll be able to go through a lot of the backlog. Both of those programs will be run through the Department of Environmental Protection at the state level. So and I think similarly, they have a list of a lot of these sites, but I'm sure by no means is it exhaustive. I think, like, if there's sites, you're seeing some of these on, in properties around here or in the region, let's have a conversation about it and make sure that they're at least on our list, and we can try to prioritize them to fix.
Jack, the applicants tend to be municipalities, or can they be private developers?
That I think, I think the state is just going to sort of identify them and go in and do. So, like, that won't even need to be, the municipality won't even need to apply, really, just sort of making us aware of them, and then the state will go in and contract with somebody to clean them up. So no real skin in the, like, the municipality or the county won't have to put in any funding for that. The next big thing, which is really exciting about this bill as well, is there's a gigantic investment in broadband. We're starting to get the planning dollars on the state side for broadband, but we won't get the large chunk of it until later this year. We're expecting to get the, I think from outside estimates we've seen, somewhere $700 to $900 million for broadband funding. We also have some state money. So, we're looking at having probably over $1 billion to spend on broadband. We have to, the federal guidelines on that is we have to bring access where there isn't any, increase access where it's slower, and then reduce costs. Those are sort of the federal priorities we have to adhere to in our plan. How I think this will, right now we're sort of in a waiting game where the FCC has to come out with a map and, or an updated map, I should say, and sort of that spells out for every state in the country, who has service, how fast it is. Traditionally, these FCC maps have been, haven't been that, I would say, have really underestimated our need. Penn State has done a lot of work in the space, and Penn State, I think, has probably a much more accurate picture of what our need looks like. So, I think this is really relevant to the counties, to the municipalities here, is that, once these maps come out, we're going to have the opportunity as the state to challenge them and to say, they might come back and say, okay, 90% of Lackawanna County has high-speed broadband. And, maybe I talked to Bob and he says, that's not true. It's closer to 60, and
Sandy and Brenda have been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
For a couple of years.
So you're fully aware. And so, I think it's going to be really important for when those maps come out, and this is going to be a pretty quick process for us to just be talking to you. And, how the FCC has traditionally done these maps is they look at a census block, and, let's say there's 100 houses in the census block, and, I have broadband and nobody else here does. They say the whole census block has broadband. So that's not very accurate. We want to, we're expecting that we're going to have to, go back and forth with them, challenge them, and then ultimately it's important because, if they say 60% of your state has broadband when it's really 50 or something like that, just numbers for the sake of argument, that will depend on how much money we get. So we obviously want to make sure we're getting as much money as possible. So I think it's going to be important for us to just stay in touch on that. And, when this process happens, probably later in the fall or into the winter. And then from there, once we get our allocation, we're going to have to do as a state, we're going to have to set up a new program and do sub grants to counties, to municipalities, I think this program, everybody will be able to get some funding. Counties will have to apply, through us. Like, I think we want to make this as easy as possible, but being honest here, it's a brand new program. It's a lot of money. I think DCD does a good job of getting money out the door quickly. But there's a lot of federal guidelines we have to adhere to, using prevailing wage, buy America, build in America, that sort of thing. So, we have to make sure that we're following all the federal rules, because we don't want to be on the hook for having to pay back money. So, it's a new program. It's very exciting. There's also going to be other competitive opportunities for us to partner with counties and municipalities to go after more money.
Do you imagine that this will be, as you're stating, going with counties and what have you, that this will be also locally competitive? Or will this need to be partnered with a large commercial provider?
I think that they'll have to be, a provider will have to do some of the work.
Because in our instance, this is one of the things that has consistently been one of the issues. Lackawanna County is unique in that we own and operate our own system.
Mhm.
So on a lot of the opportunities that come up, because they're in conjunction with large commercial providers, we are kind of
Sure.
taken out of that process because we are the provider.
Mhm.
So I'm just
Yeah,
wondering
I
if there's any, because I know that there's other counties that do something similar, but we literally have led the front
Yeah.
in doing that throughout Lackawanna County. And we're missing out on some of those opportunities because we are the ISP.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't think that you would miss out on. I mean, I don't think that's our intent. For you to miss out. I think it certainly will be like a public-private partnership, but it doesn't mean you have to, partner with a Comcast or AT&T or any of those. I mean, if the county wants to, I don't see any reason why they, assuming you follow all the rules and guidelines, but I don't think there's no requirement you need to have a private partner, to my knowledge. But
And let me interject here that for the smaller municipalities up and down the valley is through both organic activity, that is to say, people moving from major cities, major metropolitan areas into or back to northeastern Pennsylvania, which we'd already been seeing that pre-COVID. It accelerated, of course, in COVID. On top of that, through Skills in Scranton, our workforce development program, we did a very aggressive talent attraction program, and we're still doing it, where we're basically using social media platforms heavily into New York City, Northern New Jersey, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, and we've seen literally 15 million connections in the last year just through that activity. I bring it up in the sense of the broadband because if one of the things we want to do is to get, either keep our best and brightest, yes, get the best and brightest to come back or to move here, many of whom are going to work remotely. They may still be working for their business in New York City or someplace else around the globe, but now moving into all parts of Lackawanna County. I mean, everywhere. I mean, Michelle Bannon's on here. I'm sure she has seen it up in Carbondale. We see it up and down the valley from there to Old Forge and below. And we want to keep those people here, and they need to be able to get easy access. In some cases, it's easy. They have access to Verizon or Comcast. But if they're living in the lake regions of northeastern Pennsylvania, Lackawanna County, they don't always have access to that. So many municipalities, let's think about that. Let's not just dismiss that as it's a county issue or something else. It's a conversation that we collectively ought to have.
absolutely, yeah, I think it's going to be really important. I think that I think that the administration's goal is, they want to be able to come out of this and say that they brought high-speed broadband to everybody in America. I think there's a lot of work to happen before that's reality. And there's, it's like I said, it's a brand new program. It's a big undertaking. The scale of money we're talking about is huge. For us looking at getting close to $1 billion, That's basically some of our entire bigger than most of our state agencies budgets, and we're just getting this for one program. So it's a lot of money, a lot of opportunities, you know, and I think like it's still, you know, since it's a new program, it's sort of taking a little longer than some of the other programs out there. But you know, I think come later this year, early next year, you'll be seeing a lot more information on that. And you know, I think, like I said, I think it's a big opportunity, especially for you know, the region here where access, you know, and high-speed access is an issue. So you know, we're looking to be in touch there. And one other thing too on that, there, you know, this is not run through the state, it's purely a federal program, but we're trying to increase awareness of it. But there's a new program under the bill called the Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP. So that allows folks to sign up to get a subsidy for internet. So, you know, you have to qualify, there has to be certain income, you know, most folks on SNAP or Medicare, or Medicaid should qualify for that, but it's, you know, it's through the FCC, folks can sign up, I can send information out on that, but, you know, it's very simple. There's no, you know, it's just a subsidy for folks to get internet, you know, that might not be able to afford it. So, you know, we know cost is a barrier to a lot of folks. You know, obviously access is a barrier, but you know, I think it's a really good program. There's a lot of money behind it. So I'm happy I can send some information to Bob and to this group, and just would ask, you know, we've done on the state level, we've done some social media on it, and we're able to send out text to folks on certain lists, you know, that to make them aware of the program. So you know, I think that's something that you'll probably continue to see. There'll probably be billboards up about it, not necessarily by us, but by the federal government. But just want to make sure, because I think that you know, the numbers we've seen, you know, there's close to 1 million Pennsylvanians that should be eligible for that. And I don't think, you know, even half have probably signed up. So it's just money folks can get to make the cost easier. You know, there's another moving on in the bill. There's a large energy section of the bill, and you know, I probably should have touched on this earlier because this is sort of PennDOT, but also energy. But you know, we're getting a lot of money on the state for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. You know, we just submitted our state plan. You know, the federal guidelines say that we need to first focus on the highways and alternative fuel corridors. So Turnpike, 81, 80, you know, we have to have about EV charging about, I think it's every 40 to 50 miles. So, you know, we're getting that money from the federal government soon. We'll be building that out. After the first, you know, our estimate is, you know, it's a 5-year program. After the first 2 years, we should be able to probably cover most of the interstates and highways and whatnot. From there, we then have the flexibility to sort of go into communities and build the infrastructure. You know, I think we want to view this as like an economic driver as well, you know, for charging your electric vehicle, you know, probably takes 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So if we put one in downtown Scranton, there's more foot traffic down here, down, you know, in downtowns, in a, you know, near a mall, near a, you know, minor league stadium, anything like that. That's sort of how we're thinking about it. So, you know, certainly would welcome those conversations with folks. You know, I know there's not, you know, not everybody has an electric vehicle, you know, it's the minority of folks right now, but, you know, I think a lot of that will change in the next few years. More and more people, you know, they're sort of seeing record sales. So, you know, I think that it's important for that infrastructure to be there. You know, and like I said, I think we should talk to folks like the people in this room and see where in their communities it makes sense to put them, you know, where we can sort of bring more foot traffic to, you know, a downtown that might not have been seeing it as much in the last few years with COVID and everything like that. So, you know, PennDOT is doing a lot of outreach on this. If anyone has thoughts or ideas or wants to have a meeting with PennDOT about it, myself, we're happy to do that, and just sort of give you an update on where we are. You know, like I said, for the first few years, it's going to be a lot of the highways and things like that. But you know, we, you know, I remember years ago, you know, going to Bloomsburg and you know, for work when I was with the senator, and the hotel I stayed at, I was there on like a Tuesday night and there was not a parking spot available. And the reason was because it was like right off the highway and it had EV infrastructure, and all these people that were passing through on their EVs were then staying in this hotel. So it was interesting to me then. I think that was probably like 2018. Since then, I think there's only more folks buying them. So it's a real opportunity, I think, to provide the new infrastructure, but also to use it as a economic development catalyst in our towns and communities. There's also a lot of there's a new program as well that we're getting. The state's going to be getting funding to improve our electric grid. That will come through the state, and then we'll talk to electric providers, utility companies about ways to strengthen their grid. I have talked to some of these companies already, and I think that all of them would probably tell you that they have challenges with their grid and they just can't afford to, or haven't prioritized making the investments to fix it. Things that areas that in a bad storm are the first to go out. I think with this funding and like sort of a public-private partnership, we can really help them on this. So this program, like I said, brand new program, just getting underway. Not as much of a direct involvement for counties and municipalities, but if there's sort of problem spots you're seeing, in a storm, certain sectors of the county or the town that are losing power, it's good to get that on your utilities radar, I would say, because they're going to have an opportunity to go for this money, and sort of weatherproof, and bulk up their infrastructure. There's also money, we're getting a lot of money to our state weatherization program. That's an existing program through DCED, but we're getting a lot more money there. I think that is really important, and then it's a pretty flexible program. So, I think DCED has done some small grants to counties and municipalities in the past, but like I said, there's going to be a lot more money. So if there's things there that you're interested in, let's make sure you're getting in touch with DCED and talking about it. And I think there could be opportunities there in the coming years. Like I said, it's over 5 years. So once again, if you're not ready tomorrow or in 6 months from now, it's okay, but it's good to have those conversations now and see what it could potentially be used for and go from there. I think I mentioned too, just sort of, there's a lot of new, I'm talking about the energy programs, but a lot of competitive programs. These necessarily might not even be stuff that the state applies for or local governments apply for, but it might be something that companies are interested. There's a new program for renewable energy technology on abandoned mine land sites. Like as I mentioned earlier, Pennsylvania has a lot of abandoned mine lands, top in the country. So, that is something, I think the Department of Energy sees as a good program for Pennsylvania. There's some opportunities with carbon capture and whatnot. These are, like I said, probably private sector companies going after these directly from the Department of Energy. But, I think a lot of opportunities to drive growth and to, sort of pivot towards cleaner energy and create jobs in the process. So those are the big buckets of the funding, roads and bridges, broadband, water, energy. And I think I tried to tailor it to the counties and local government perspective, but if there's any questions or comments or anything else you want me to talk more about, I'm happy to do it.
Check the water. Does that include like catch basin?
I think it should, yeah. I would think Penvest is probably the best conversation there, but I don't see why it wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, water, stormwater and stormwater management obviously is an issue for Lackawanna County. I don't want to put the commissioner or Brenda on the spot here, but clearly, got to figure a way to come together on this for the sake of the entire community. Water doesn't know boundaries. Right.
For the bridge investment program, if just to state, not only is that available on the PennDOT side, but it's also available.
Yes,
municipalities
yes,
directly.
I should have said that, yeah.
Because some of those locally owned roads, like in our case, like with the county, wouldn't necessarily go under PennDOT's purview, for any of that work to be done.
Yes, yeah, that is correct. Yeah, I mean, I think most of the competitive programs, counties or local communities could apply on their own as well for the bridge investment for, there probably will be matches for some of them, but yes, it's definitely, there's a lot of opportunities there for, cities and counties and municipalities to apply directly.
To what agency, Jack?
So this would be,
Federal highway
federal
administration.
highways, DOT at the federal level. Yeah,
Because that's really what, one of the questions I had, from what I understand is, when you take the entire federal infrastructure bill and then you sort of slice and dice it, and there's a lot that goes to the PennDOT or the state transportation. So if you say that there's this much available in Pennsylvania, this much is going to PennDOT directly, but then there are these other pieces that are either directly available through the federal government or potentially available through the state government, correct?
yeah. And I will say, in general, I think the bill is a good story. I think there's a lot, I think as a state, there's a lot coming quickly, and I've talked to other communities around the state, and, I think it can be overwhelming at times. There's not like a clear federal, like a one-stop shop where you could click, I mean, part of the reason why I've been trying to do conversations like this to get the word out. I think that's going to be a work in progress for the federal government. I think they're trying to give more opportunities to counties and communities. But I think that it's obviously, not the easiest thing for folks to turn around an application, and sometimes, at least in this year, it's been, with 60 days notice. And, I think, yeah, I think, at least the stability of this bill, these programs are going to be around for the next few years. So, the timelines might shift, but you sort of know it's there. And I think that the federal goals are to make it, to try to get money directly to communities. But, as I said, sort of a work in progress. And as a state, even if we're not applying directly with you, we want to be helpful, trying to workshop with you and talk to you about projects that are out there.
So I know that most of the municipalities are looking at, they still have ARPA, ARPA money.
Yeah.
And, one of the issues, of course, I think everybody's wrestling with this is the kind of the strict regulations and rules and limitations on how you can spend those dollars. Would we alternatively find through the federal infrastructure bill fewer of those kinds of restrictions?
I think it depends on the program. I think that, there are, I think generally for this bill, there's a lot of, there's requirements on prevailing wage and Buy America, that those are across the board. I think that they want to see these projects. There's a big push on resiliency, climate change, flood, addressing those things. They, like how it's been, my conversations with folks at the federal level, they don't expect you to come forward with a project and to check every single box. They understand that, there's, one project might be great for, resiliency, climate change, it might not have, as good of pedestrian access or something like that. So I think that, the advice I've been given from them is, they understand that if you can't address all of their goals, sort of address why you can't, address still why it's an important project. And I don't think that they want to be an obstacle for folks to get money here. They just sort of have their priorities, and they're trying to get folks to align with them to the extent possible. I think that we, as a state, we struggle with a lot of the Buy America provisions on, on steel and, when we're, so I think that there's a blanket federal highways waiver for a year. So I think that, that's something we're applying for as a state. I don't know if we haven't officially granted it yet, but I think that it's going to happen. So I think but there's certainly, it's certainly not a perfect bill. And I think that, a lot of folks, when I talk to some of these, priorities, goals are going to be hard for folks to meet, hard for the state to meet, hard for counties and cities to meet. So, I think it's just like, it's important to address them in an application and sort of see, sort of speak to why you couldn't do it as well. So, and I think over time, wouldn't surprise me if on the federal level, they make some changes, make it easier over time. That would shock me in the next year or so if folks are, I think their nightmare scenario, right, is not being able to get this money out the door quickly and have projects. And, if we're a year from here and, folks are saying, I have this project, but I can't do it because I can't find the workforce, or I can't find the product, built in America. That's not good for anybody. So, I think I would just say, look at those opportunities, and if there's issues, we're always happy to elevate them to the federal government for folks if they're seeing challenges as well.
Oh, yes.
I got my card. I can hand it out. So
Jack, is there a single site where we try to, where our municipalities and their representatives can find a lot of these programs, or are they all scattered?
they're really all scattered on the federal level. On the state side, that's something we're trying to look at doing to build out, like a sort of a one-stop shop. It's a work in progress, and I think we're cognizant of that. We're cognizant it's not the easiest thing to do, easiest thing for folks to find. So we're trying to do a lot of outreach. All of our PennVest, PennDOT, DEP are doing outreach on these programs to try to get the word out. And we would like to, eventually build out something public facing for folks that they can, I'm a county, what am I eligible for? I'm a city, what am I eligible for? So stay tuned on that. And we're certainly aware that it's not the easiest thing to do right now.
Do have a question from someone online here, and I think maybe we hit a little bit of this before, but sewer capacity is typically the foremost requirement in advancing manufacturing for economic development projects. And I mentioned that earlier. But,
Yeah.
Again, remember oftentimes these have become municipal issues. We worked with a number of different municipalities up and down the valley in the last few years. We need everybody to be thinking long term. From an economic development standpoint, it's got to be planned out. You have to be thinking about in advance. I know that particularly as again, I'm a Mid Valley guy myself, so moving up the valley, you see, we're going to see more and more potential open land, whether it's in Carbondale area or Carbondale Township, Mayfield, German, and that interest that we're experiencing along the Casey Highway at a lot of different nodes along there. I just want to encourage the municipal representatives who are here today or on the Zoom call. Please reach out, ask for me, ask for Bruce Reddick, ask for Aaron Whitney and our economic development team. We're more than happy to try to discuss this with you and see what we can do to get ahead of the curve on this. And certainly the county is always available. You can call Brenda at home.
And I will say too, I think I touched on this briefly, but in the state budget, there was a big investment in water infrastructure as well, sewers and clean water. That's going to be, there's money at PennVest from the federal money, but that's going to be run out of the CFA, the Commonwealth Financing Authority. That's sort of not really directly under the governor's purview. But that, just for folks' awareness too, there could be, there's a couple different avenues here, I would say. So, and both are probably have more funding than in any time in recent memory. So if you have a project, it's a good time to, talk to someone. And like I said, even if it's not ready to go 6 months, a year, 2 years, even this is over 5 years. So they can sort of help you get ready and be ready to apply, help you with the technical assistance and the engineering and get you ready to go in a few years.
So does that mean, like right now, the H2O program and the small water and sewer are kind of closed up?
Yeah.
Then nothing has been done. Is that, they're waiting for those dollars?
Yeah.
To then be available?
At
to
the
then
CFA,
reopen
yeah.
those programs?
Yeah, I think so. So like it just, the budget passed early July. So it'll probably take a little time to physically, get it up and running, but I don't know the exact timing there. But it's something I can find out. But yeah, I think
What's the scale on dollar wise on those, do you know?
I say that.
One is like projects that are around $1 million. The H2O program has a larger, like a larger project scope. It's usually a larger amount of money. The small water and sewer is, just that. It's a smaller, they're usually like around $500,000, $250,000. But those are available for communities to invest in their, in their water and sewer infrastructure. To either replace or to do like diversion, which is really important for us with the Lackawanna River as a Chesapeake tributary. So, as you're talking about all of the, all of the development or what have you, that's up above literally where the level of the river would be, that's one of the things that we have to kind of keep in mind as the municipalities literally up and down the line, is that none of that detritus is entering the Lackawanna River. So that's continually like kind of the tenet that we have to look at is that, yes, we need to correct some of the water and sewer. We need to, divert this, but we also need to divert it from entry into the Lackawanna River, because that's a federally protected, that's part of the Chesapeake Bay water system. So,
Bruce Reddick is on this call from one of our members of our team. Bruce, can you speak to the capacity for the various the sewer authority plants along the way?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. So as we understand it through our research on the SLPCO side, the treatment facilities themselves have adequate capacity. And speaking with Mike Matichek on numerous occasions, excuse me, both Jessup Borough and Archbald Borough, there's two separate treatment plants where water diverts to. Adequate capacity, they could probably use a little bit more if there was dollars available. The real hang up for us and any development essentially comes into play with respect to the conveyance system, where a lot of times it's aging infrastructure and in some cases decaying infrastructure, which just can't support additional capacities. So when you have a development at the, we'll just call it at the top of the hill, where there's adequate capacity in that infrastructure, and on the tail end, you have adequate capacity in the treatment center, it's sort of irrelevant at that point when the conveyance system, which is dead stop in the middle, prohibits any additional capacity. So that's sort of the challenge that we've seen in the hang up at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it earlier, but yeah, a lot of that CFA money I talked about is supposed to help, we Pennsylvania with the Chesapeake, with our runoff, we're the problem state in the Chesapeake Basin. So we're under, there's a federal consent decree that we have to clean it up in a certain time. So a lot of that money, but as the Lackawanna River, Susquehanna River, big runoff into there. So I think that there's going to be especially interest on projects that can address that as well.
This probably runs a little bit off topic, but do you have any sense of when federal government's going to come in with a hammer rather than a grant to try to fix the problem? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're eventually going to start saying, we're done giving you money to try to fix it, but you're not actually fixing it. You have to fix it now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's it usually, like, Congress is usually really slow, very reactive, not proactive. So I think it's hard to get, usually when that happens, it's like after an emergency or after a disaster, and then they come in and throw a lot of money very quickly and rebuild, after a hurricane or a major disaster. So I can say that I think that you never know, but I think that they're trying to be more forward thinking with a bill like this, but usually sort of with the hammer comes after comes too late,
So good planning. So for our engineering board, chamber members who are here and on the call, promote that among your municipal clients. It's critically important that, sometimes we get accused around here of doing a little too much planning. But the reality is most grant applications or situations like that demand that you have something in place. They don't want you just winging it. And what's more is the good planning sets the platform to be strong in those applications. Because now you have the information, you've got the detail that's ready to go. And again, I know that Brenda and her department do a great job supporting our municipalities up and down the valley. So are there any questions from anybody on the virtual side?
Bob, it's Brian. I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you very much for hosting this meeting for us today and bringing Jack in. And Jack, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come up here and talk to us. This information is vital to not just to the county, but to all 40 municipalities. It's tapping the resources and getting the money to do what we have to get done. And thanks to you two gentlemen today, we are just a little bit more educated in the process. Thank you.
No problem. Happy to do it. I'm happy to come back again. Things are constantly moving with this. So, I think it's good to, we're trying to get out there and talk to as many folks as possible, but, things shift, it's a new bill, federal government could change things. So, I talk to Bob pretty frequently, but, happy to do this again in a couple months or, do something virtual, that's whatever works, but and please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and if I'm not the right person, we can find somebody on our team to get you the information you need.
And we will make sure that everybody on this call gets Jack's contact information, and we'll work together with the county, with Brenda and her team to try to identify maybe some pathways for the municipalities to go to get these some of the programs that Jack talked about. Brenda, Commissioner Chermak, anything you want to add?
No, I think it's very, very helpful. Thank you. That's always the challenge, is finding out where the information is to go to apply, and trying to understand this.
Sure.
Thank you.
No, it's certainly a lot. It's like, I think it's overwhelming, so I think that's something the states, like when we talk to the federal government, that's something we try to make clear. So, hopefully they'll make it easier to use and easier to, and that's something we're working on at the state level for our local partners.
Last thoughts or questions? Okay, well then, thanks again, Jack. We appreciate it. This won't be the last time we talk. And again, if anybody starts to get involved in some of this stuff from a municipal or engineering standpoint, and you think that we at the chamber can be of any help to you, please give us a call. All right. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for your time.